is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing. We are less than 24 hours away from the Petit Le Mans, one of the toughest endurance races in all of sim racing. Today, the drivers will do 1 hour instead. Call it the prelude, call it whatever you want, as we say welcome to Road Atlanta and welcome to the IMSA iRacing.com online sports car championship. Robinson along with Connery Maddock, and I've just realised, Connery, this is your broadcast, not mine, so I'm going to do this. Wait, bear with us.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another week of RaceSpotTV Friday Prime Time, the IMSA iRacing Sports Car Championship here on the iRacing Esports Network once again. And well, we have that huge event, that huge matter to attend to of the Petit Le Mans tomorrow. But this is basically the preview event to that one. I am Connery Maddock. Joining me in the commentary booth is the one, the only Will, Vincent, and Will. Many of the drivers and the teams that we see out there just finishing their qualifying times, they will be a big part in that top split tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely. We see the likes of maybe Radicals Online grabbing themselves another special event race when they usually do pretty well in those types of events. We'll have the usual suspects like Pure Racing Team, like Thrustmaster Bavano, like teams like Apex as well. They'll all be fighting it out around this circuit, and if it's anything like last year, then oh my word, the traffic is going to be horrendous for these drivers.
Your one key to success here, Connery, at Road Atlanta is very, very simple. You've got to make sure you understand that you will lose 5 seconds if you get held up behind drivers through turn number 1 and that run down to turn 5. That's okay, because other drivers are going to do exactly the same thing. You've got to remember, every lap is a new lap around here, and if you don't get that into your head early, there's no point in you showing up.
Yeah, exactly. We had an absolutely fantastic event last year where the battle for the race league was certainly very, very interesting, with second place managing to unlap themselves and trying to chase from a lap down all the way to the end of the event. Unfortunately, they were unable to do so, but well, things are looking a little bit closer maybe for tomorrow's event, as we're going to start to round out qualifying here for the IMSA Sports Car Championship. We've got track conditions. We got mostly cloudy, 22 degrees Celsius in the air. We've got 29 degrees Celsius on the track. Winds from the east at 12 kilometers an hour, so they won't be a huge factor in this one. Track is at moderate temperature as well, so pretty much very, very mild, very, very calm conditions out there today, so nothing out of the ordinary, Will.
Yeah, you're completely right. So nice standard track conditions for this week, and again, more practice for those drivers. The one thing the drivers aren't going to get actually here, Connery, is the chance to really drive on a track which is rubbered in. So this is good for the teams in terms of them getting that early practice, but it doesn't really help for later on in the Petit Le Mans tomorrow. And this is one thing I think the reason why we've got a lot of the people I think starting tomorrow who own the cars right now.
Yeah, this is the ideal practice for the start of the event tomorrow, and ideal practice for just starting to run in those big packs of traffic that you see at the start of the event. But we'll have a little bit of a run down the starting grid here at Road Atlanta. Fabrice Cornelis takes pole position then in your C7 Daytona prototype field. You've got Johan Harf lining up next to him for race clutch on the front row. Second row consists of Riku Talo and Joel Guez. And then further down in the third row, you've got Marco Mogren and Sai Andra. And then you've got Sven Kamert and Thibaut Kazubon there further back. And they've got Eric Andre, who will have to start right at the back of that prototype field due to not setting a qualifying time. Looking at your GTE field then, Dion Fiallo taking pole position in that one. Kenny Rusin, P number 2. Robin Eston and Gianni Vecchio will bring things down to P number 3 on your starting grid for GTEs today. And you've got Mikko Melkala rounding out P number 5 there on the grid. Thomas Gibson, P number 6. Arthur LeHook and Patrick Henry solidly mid-pack in qualifying. It's going to be very, very interesting for them to see how they can make their way up through the field. Vincenzo Silvestri, Tammy Ackley in a very similar position as well. Gerard Coroni, Scott Brazier, Yavi Ultreas. You got Andy Gordon and Jorge Vasco Valls as well, right to the back of that GTE field. So this GTE field is absolutely stacked in terms of the talent that we have taking part in it. But then you've got to cast your eyes back then to your GT3 field. Fraser Williamson, he's jumped out out of a prototype for this one and into that Mercedes-AMG GT3 machine. Perhaps a little bit of a sign of what he'll be running in the Petit Le Mans for Team Bushfink Racing. Manuel Weibel lining up next to him in his Audi. You got Harold Stadler and Nicky Thiem there, consisting of the second row. Wim Stockman, CM Skinner, row number 3. Michael F. Doka and Carlos Eno will be your row number 4 gridders, with Andrei Rekovic and Dave Cameron bringing things down to P number 34 in terms of the overall qualifying. Abdelkir Al-Amri further back as well. We've got Stuart Dick, Carlos Oliver Pascual. You've got Tom Brittle, Michael Etienne, and Carsten Huth running out your 40-car field here today. We'll get ourselves started then for our full pace lap around Road Atlanta, and you know what we're going to talk about, Will. Opportunities to maybe have to save fuel and obviously get those tires up to temperature.
Yeah, that is always going to be key at a track like this. Save a little bit of fuel. You do a lot of that, Connery, in Sector 1 because it is downhill. I have seen drivers coast all the way down and actually realise they're going too far and have incidents down at turn number 5. But you will see a lot of lifting and a lot of coasting on this pace lap.
Yep, we will, as just spotting the GT3 field heading their way through what is one of the most treacherous corners on this track. The GTE field making their way through one of the most treacherous corners on the track. That turn number 5. We've seen so many incidents coming through that particular corner that it is a very, very scary prospect for an endurance race where you have to be doing it hundreds of times over the course of the event. This corner where if you run wide over that curb, you can clip the gravel. The curb itself can upset your car as well, and you'll be spat towards that inside barrier at quite a pace. Drivers have to take it carefully, Will.
They do, and the thing is, you've got that curb on the outside, as you say. That really encourages drivers to go hard. However, you take a little bit too hard, game over.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, to do that hundreds of times through an endurance event, it really does take a special type of driver to not make a small mistake that can have rather large consequences through that particular corner. But your prototype field then are heading their way through the final chicane. And in terms of this race and tomorrow, this is where you'll see most of the passing moves attempted and trying to be completed as they head their way under the Suzuki bridge then. Pace car will pull in, field under the control of Fabrice Collins. Green flag out quickly. We will go racing here in IMSA Sports Car Championship. Side by side for P2 coming down into turn number 1, but there's contact then for P number 3. Johan Hart spins around, and oh, that's gone back into the traffic as well. So huge problems for the second half of your prototype field, and huge problems for the GTEs as they try to make their way through on them. But I think they've done rather okay in this situation. Drivers backing off, allowing the incident to clear itself, finding the holes, and then the GT3 field is pretty much clear as they come up the hill then towards turn number 3. Huge drama as well in your prototypes.
Yeah, and here's look, Joel Guez, number 21 machine, and this is what you mean. The track getting blocked down at turn number 3. I mean, that would have been a safety car, of course. In real life, IMSA Racing don't have that in the iRacing Road Series, but that could have been a 20-car pile-up.
Yeah, you get to see on these screens the contact between Johan Hart, the car ahead, and Joel Guez, the car behind. Hart just coming across the track to the right a little bit and coming across the nose then of Joel Guez as Guez has to spin right in the middle of traffic there, collecting Sven Kamertz of the Radicals Online team. And Eric Andre just slamming on the anchors. Somehow he gets through that with very, very minimal damage, but he was starting at the back of the grid anyway, so there's not much more that he could have lost there in that situation. But ooh, that has really thinned out the prototype field right now. Fabrice Cornelis still leads the way. Still a battle for P number 1, in fact, overall, between Cornelis and Riku Alatalo. So Pure Racing team then versus Glacier Racing. And well, it's been a long time since we've seen Glacier Racing right to the top of the standings when it comes to iRacing events, when it comes to things like the World Championship Series. But here they are, and looking to make a statement both in this and the Petit Le Mans tomorrow.
Riku Alatalo, when he came onto the World Championship scene, scored pole position as a pro driver at this track in the World Championship Series. So this is one of Riku's best tracks as he tries to look himself to the outside in towards that fabled chicane, and he's almost alongside.
Oh. And he manages to get his way by as well. No cutback move then for Fabrice Cornelis to get himself back ahead. So a new overall race leader coming towards the end of lap 2 of this event. Riku Alatalo for Glacier Racing right at the top of the timing screens then in that prototype field. And that was a fantastic move coming down into the final chicane for him to secure his position right at the top. We're having a little bit of a look down towards that GT3 field because you have battle between the number 6 and the 10. Patrick Henry versus LeHuck. LeHuck, oh, that's a beautiful move down the inside there at turn number 1. Just absolutely pitch perfect and textbook there, Will.
Yeah, let's get ourselves a second look at that one. That was in towards turn 1. One of the 2 places, really, Connery, where you can overtake a driver. As this is a look then as they headed themselves down the start-finish line towards turn 1. You've got to be brave to make a move into 1, but the inside line just opened there for the hook, and he just dove it in. You've got to be brave to do a move, and tomorrow what we are going to see is a lot of drivers desperate to get past traffic, making bold moves into there, especially if you're a Daytona prototype.
Especially if you perhaps fearing that you're going to be behind the traffic for when it comes to the S's section in the first sector of the lap. I've seen so many prototypes lose so much time there getting trapped behind GTE and GT3 machines that it really puts them under threat from perhaps some other prototypes behind. It means they're not going to be able to catch other prototypes ahead that are lapping the traffic better than they are. So a lot of frustration will appear in the prototype field tomorrow, and that one's certainly a very interesting one to watch. But right now, of course, they haven't had their first set of lapping just yet. And although we had that big incident in the prototype field early on, it seems that this top 5 has actually stuck together rather well. We've only had 3 retirements from the prototype field. We've had Sven Kamitz, Johan Hart, and Angel Guez drop off this field, but everyone else is still stuck together like glue. Fabrice Cornelis did manage to get himself past on that previous lap, of course. And so these guys are chopping and changing for the race lead between Cornelis and Alatalo. And if they're going to be fighting like this, well, it does mean that Syandra can get himself involved. Maybe Marco Mogren and Kazu Bon as well, as they decide to maybe dice through the final corner. They'll take the fight instead down towards turn number 1. Kazu Bon looking for a cutback move through turn number 1, trying to get that power up the hill despite the damage that he has to the rear right of his Daytona prototype. Not able to, as he gets into that blind or half blind turn number 3, as the change in elevation really affects you coming down through this section, through the compression, through the S's, up towards turn number 5 as well. Careful not to track out too wide there, as Kazubon likes to play with fire on the exit of that corner. But that first sector is just so enjoyable for the prototypes as long as they don't get stuck behind a piece of traffic.
It is, and one thing I'm paying attention to right now, Connery, is just how far back you need to be able to do the slipstream in towards that chicane if you are in a Daytona prototype. Alatalo, a third of a second back as he headed himself out of turn number 7. This time by, he'll swing it again to the outside line. This time by, again, he gets the line and he goes off. So, Alatalo!
That was so close. Alatalo will get the slowdown penalty for that one, but it could have been so much worse as he'll continue to battle, or at least try to, with Syandra for P number 2. Might even lose the position to Mogren now as he tries to find his way down the inside at turn number 1, but the door will be firmly shut in that situation. Alatalo, scary moment down into the chicane, completely outbraking himself, trying to get that move done over Cornelis, and he has to take a trip over the grass as a result.
He does, and he falls down into 3rd place. So we're talking about the fact that this front pack are still close together. That is the one thing that's saved Alatalo in this event so far. It is, however, allowed the driver of Cornelia to stretch out to almost a 1 second lead. One thing I was paying attention to a little bit earlier on, Connery, was that Fraser Williamson in GT3 had actually got himself a second advantage over Nicky Thiem in the number 26 car. However, Nicky has come back and it's now down to 4 tenths.
Of course, Nicky also qualified P number 4, so he's gained himself 2 positions here as we see the battle for P number 2 in prototypes. Rico Alatalo has managed to make his way back through up into P number 2 with a move over Syandra down the inside for the first apex for the chicane, the 10A, 10B chicane right at the end of the lap. So Alatalo can go back on the charge then for that Pure Racing team driver ahead of him. But I completely agree with you, Will. This battle for the race lead in GT3s may very well be on as team tries to chase down Williamson. And if you see Nicky Thiem in your wing mirrors, that can be sometimes a disconcerting moment, knowing that you have a driver that is so skilled on the real world side of things trying to overtake you. It requires some resilience.
It does indeed, but that number 23 car, Fraser Williamson, ironically, Connery, isn't going to be phased by the number 26 car. He's probably more phased by himself and the fact that we're talking about him right now. Of course, the curse of the commentators strikes no harder than on Fraser Williamson. However, he is doing a good job right now. That last time by, however, lost another couple attempts to a second.
The gap is just being eaten away then bit by bit by Nicky Thiem as these two are basically just trying to gap the rest of the field. Manuel Weibel was about a 10.5 seconds slower there than Nicky Thiem, so it looks like these two cars will be the breakaway that we're going to have at the front of the GT3 field. But having a look at your GTE race lead, though, that is still a rather close affair as well. You have all 3 podium positions, all very, very close, all within sight, all within striking distance as well, and all Fords.
All Fords. Where's Cam Walsh when we need him? It is a Ford fest right now in towards turn number 1. And one of the things that I'm paying attention to as well is the fact that we have got World Championship caliber drivers in this event today. We have got 5 of them taking part in this event. Patrick Heinrich, for example, is one of them in that number 6 car right now. We've also got ourselves Don Fabio. He is in 3rd place in GTE class. And, well, they have got themselves 4 drivers of World Championship caliber in that GTE field here today. There's people that often ask about the strength of field in these races, Connery, and GTE is pretty darn stacked.
Yeah, if you do want an exact figure, it stands at about 6,600 is your strength of field for this GTE field. It is absolutely insane. In terms of the entire 40 cars that we have that took the start, that was about 4,750, so oh, this is a very, very stacked field indeed. But behind your race leading pack in GT3, we've got a battle for P number 4 then, as Arthur Hook manages to get himself by the driver of the number 5. As Thomas Gibson, but Gibson will manage to come back here, perhaps through the final corner, just tucking underneath the rear diffuser of that Ford ahead of him and trying to draw himself alongside for 10 number 1 maybe. Nope, he's just going to stay in line and just take that pass on the chin. And sometimes that is what you have to do, Will. Sometimes it might be detrimental to try to fight back because you'll just lose a lot more time. You perhaps just wait, sit behind and look to do it in a better place.
Yes, and that's what I often call time management at Road Atlanta. Road Atlanta is not a forgiving track by any stretch of the imagination. It is one of those tracks where you really do not really need to just race the track, but race it yourself in the correct way. And I talk about racing yourself. We have got traffic for the first time, and what that's done is allowed Ricky Alatalo, or Ricky Atulu, as he was famously called that first time around, to get himself back within 4 tenths of a second. And I will say, if you're going to see a Glacier TV win in this event, and actually, if we're going to see Glacier Racing even, beat out Pure Racing Team, it will be at this track, because the Finns absolutely love this type of racetrack.
They do always strong performances here. Look at Fabrice Collet. He's stuck behind a GT3 machine. You can see how Italo closes up, and he'll hit the traffic in the right place for him as well. 3 wide, potentially. Oh no, that's a sketchy situation there down towards turn number 6. Italo not able to capitalize on the traffic and going out. It's actually having to take to the grass to try to get his way by that GT3 machine. So Italo still hot on the heels of your race leader with yet more traffic to come, and traffic that probably won't stop.
Indeed so, and Italo won't be close enough to make a move this time by into the chicane unless he's going to do something very bold. He's not going to do so. So 1, 2, 3 cars that they're probably going to get past before the start-finish line here, and this is where that traffic management really comes into gear. Note the fact that you've got your GT drivers on the outside line. Italo gets bumped a little bit there, as you actually have one of the GT cars having a bit of technical issues as well. Italo, luckily though, able to get past that first wave into 1.
Yeah, Abdul Al-Amri getting himself a little bit wide there off of the final turn in your GT3 class, but these prototype leaders still very close together, and it's a bit of deja vu then for Fabrice Collet as he gets stuck behind yet another GT3 machine once again through the S's. Second lap in a row that has happened to him. Can Italo capitalize this time? He's going to sit in the slipstream there down towards turn number 6. He's going to send it down the inside or prepare the move for the chicane. There's still a pack of about 3 cars ahead that could also factor into this one as well. We have battles for the race lead, mind you, in all 3 classes. This one's between Cornelis and Italo. There's one between Vecchio and Rusin and Fiallo as well. And then you've got Williamson versus Nicky Team as well. Absolutely fantastic to see here, Will.
One of the best battles I think we've ever had on Friday Night Prime Time. This short track really does lead to great racing, and we've got ourselves a battle going on. 3 battles for the race leader within 1 second as we are at the quarter-point distance. One thing we haven't actually talked about at all here, Connery, is the fact this is our first 60-minute event of the season, and that means the strategy, that book just opens up a little bit.
Yeah, it does. 3 wide then. Overall race lead with the traffic. For Cornelis managing to squeeze his way through on the GT3 machine of Harald Stadler, and that puts a little bit of a buffer between him and Italo, but Italo will go for the pass through the S's here on the lap traffic, which is always a very, very risky move. The GTs are on the limit of grip coming through there. They can't change their line very easily, so you have to make an early statement if you want to make a pass through there, instead of trying to pass the GT3 machines when they can't really change their line.
No, you can't, as we see some fantastic camera angles, as you now see GT3s mixing it up with your Daytona prototypes. And well, often people can't talk about the difference between Daytona prototypes and LMP2 in particular, because these cars are nowhere near LMP1 spec. I will say, however, I prefer the Daytona prototype to the LMP2 car, because it really is more of a kind of point and squirt car in some ways compared to the LMP2, which I often think is that kind of mid-ground, which isn't quite a full hybrid LMP1, isn't quite got enough turn on it so you can, like, you know, really fight that wheel. I love that Daytona prototype, and Daytona and Road Atlanta are 2 fantastic events for the iRacing to showcase what is an underused car quite often.
Yep, it is. And of course, if you want to talk about aesthetics as well, that car does look pretty gorgeous. I love, like, the sort of closed-top concept for an LMP2 car. It's I don't really like the open cockpit when you have 2 seats. That's just a little bit of a bugbear for me. I think that should be more reserved for cars that have a little bit of a smaller cockpit, so you can close that up with, you know, to keep the design of the car much more easier on the eye, I think, is the case there, even though these Daytona prototypes technically do have space for 2 seats in there by the regulations, but it does look a lot nicer than just having an open cockpit in these.
I often used to joke that if you have an LMP2 car the way it is, what they actually should have is they should both have a steering wheel column attached to the car, and all you do is take the wheel off one, put it onto the other, and you have 2 drivers racing at all times. So you've always got a pilot. Back in the days, I mean, let's not forget, the first one of the Indy 500, Connery, was the first driver in a huge motor race actually go solo compared to having 2 drivers in his car. I feel like a Johnny Simone statistician this evening. I don't know what's going on. It's all the baseball. I mean, they're into playoff season right now.
Yeah, I think it's just simply too much working with Johnny Simone, and it's just rubbing off on you.
Yeah.
That's the issue that we're seeing there. Is once again the traffic's going to be affecting these overall race leaders, and Alatalo has a chance, has to lift out the throttle, though no gap to work his way through with the lap traffic getting itself involved. And actually, these are the GT3 race leaders that they're trying to make their way through on right now. So they've managed to split them up, Fraser Williamson and Nicky Team, but they'll follow their way by. Alatalo actually staying with that GT3 machine just a little bit longer to pick up what he can of the slipstream before cutting back in, and that is a good strategy because it gives this sort of overspeed to Alatalo. So outside initially, then down towards the final chicane, battle for the overall race lead once again. Alatalo actually gets it stopped this time and gets himself into the race lead. Cornelius trying to fight back on the exit of the corner, and Alatalo will shut the door on him coming on the exit, and then this battle will continue then down the pit straight, down towards turn number 1. Cornelius outside this time that he has to contend with, maybe drag that car back in for the exit speed, but not able to, and I think this position is secure now for Alatalo, at least for the near future.
For the time being, one thing I want to just highlight for a moment is a difference in the closing speed from the Daytona prototypes to GTEs. You saw that Miko Markila, who of course is at Sim Racing Expo, which is why I can now pronounce his name, in the number 20 machine. He was a third of a second back from Arthur the Hook in the number 10 car as they worked themselves down the back straightaway. Did not gain much time at all.
Yeah, not at all, and still has to deal with a good couple of tenths of a second gap there in that sort of situation. But this GTE field has not spread itself out at all within touching distance, all the way up to Kenny Rusin, in fact. And I think with the way the traffic has fallen, that has meant that Gianni Vecchio has actually managed to pull away at the front of this GTE field. He has about a 2-second gap over the entire rest of the GTE field, so he's done some good work here trying to facilitate those passes from the traffic that's trying to make its way through.
Yeah, as we've just been turning back for the first time all race, being able to just take a breath, shall we, as we get close to 1/3 distance in this event. And we're having a look at Michael Doka versus Howard Stadler, and this is battle going on for 6th place in your GT3 field. And again, the closing distances are absolutely nothing like what we're seeing in Daytona prototype. So what I expect to see tomorrow is really 3 different races going on at once. In Daytona prototype, you are going to have a race where track position matters all the time, and the draft of the cars that you get on the back straight away, well, that actually might negate some of the disadvantage that you have in sector number 1. In terms of GTE, I think it is that middle ground. Track position is going to be important. However, it's going to be more of a case of you really just trying to make the least of being passed lap after lap. And for GT3, I'm going to be honest, Connery, it's a case of survival.
Yeah, it's going to be a case of try not to get in the way, perhaps, of the 2 higher classes and get yourself to the end. So we're expecting more of a race of attrition there for the GT3 field tomorrow, as I'm seeing a driver drop down my timing screens, and that is because Gerard Caroni, driver number 14, guess where it is? Turn number 5, or at least on the exit. Turn number 5 then takes its first victim, and it's exactly what we said at the start of the broadcast. Up over the curb, onto the gravel, sent it into the wall.
Yeah, but not the way we normally expect to see it there, Connie, because normally they hit that curb and spear hard left. This time, Caroni, what he did is he kind of ran, a bit like Watkins Glen, for the centre of the curb, and that car speared him instead to the right the first time. He didn't spear back across the track.
Yeah, so slightly different to what we're used to seeing there. And part of the problem with that exit curb and that exit sort of asphalt there on the runoff is that it is very, very bumpy, and you can't easily control the car there. It's just impossible to do so when your front tires are not even contacting the ground, so you're unable to steer. So it is a very, very scary moment when you go wide there, and just have to hope that you don't hit the barriers before you regain traction in that part of the circuit. But some news on your prototype race lead, in fact. Rico Alatalo has managed the gap for Brice Cornelis here. He's up to around about 1.2 seconds there on the, 1.3 seconds last time by across the timing beam. So Glacier Racing, they definitely have the pace here in prototypes and managing to gap Pure Racing Team, which is not what you usually expect to see.
Two things come to mind right now. Number one, are PRT sandbagging. Number two, are Glacier Racing looking to make a statement at the end of the season? One of those, I think, is the correct answer. I'm just not quite sure which one it is, because we often see when you've got a kind of warm-up race like this before a big event, what we often see is teams who don't often go 100% Connery. They're also racing in a different mode today compared to what they're going to be racing tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow really is endurance racing, fuel strategy, tie everything down. Today is about the early honours, and I would say that you now have to just think about Glacier Racing at least as someone in the top 5 for tomorrow. However, historically, they've had horrific luck at big events.
Yeah, they have. It's so many times that they find themselves, for example, in an early incident that has dropped them all the way to the back, and they have to fight from maybe 1 or 2 laps down at the start of the event, which is never what you want to do. Of course, there's a lot more possible in things like a 24-hour event, but the Petit Le Mans, of course, isn't that length, so it's a lot harder to do in that situation, especially with the traffic getting itself involved. But I just do want to bring the discussion, though, back to Pure Racing Team, because, of course, Fabrice Cornelis, for all the talent that he has, and for all the speed that he has, he's still not the fastest driver, I'd argue, on Pure Racing Team. Of course, Maximum Beneke is pretty much the out-and-out fastest driver on the iRacing service right now, I feel, at least in prototypes and GT machines. But it's just the case of that Pure Racing Team has such a stacked team that anyone they put in the car can get it to, you know, for example, pole position and can hold the race lead. It's not an issue for them. They have that depth to be able to go and chase these events.
You know the thing with Max Beneke that I saw at Sim Racing Expo? Quite blatantly, he doesn't give a beep. You saw him in the car. He was just driving around, having fun. He didn't really care if the attention was on him or not. He almost looked a bit awkward when he had to do that parade of all the drivers and the one person who had the underwear of their bra sticking out of their top. You know, Max Beneke just likes racing. Fabrice Cornelis, I think he's in that situation where he is at 98% of his talent right now. He can burn a lot of energy trying to be faster than Max Beneke or be a team player for PRT, as they have become a big team in iRacing, where realistically, yeah, we do talk about Beneke, but actually when we stop talking about Beneke, that's when Cornelis really strives.
Yeah, absolutely. Of the drivers that aren't Beneke in PRT, he is definitely up there in terms of the fastest, most consistent drivers on that particular team. And of course, you look at his roots coming from Vendeval Sim Racing, and you could argue that at Vendeval he was pretty much the star driver, at least in prototypes, at Vendeval, and then getting picked up by Pure Racing Team, then to be more of a consistency driver, more of a driver that they can put behind the wheel and just know that he'll be on the pace very, very quickly. So I wonder how he's managing the change from being a star driver to being more of a support role.
More importantly, are we deciding that it's Vendeval or Vendeval or what for tomorrow?
Vendeval. I'm just going to fly with Vendeval and hope no one corrects me.
Vendeval. We'll do Vendeval. We'll say now. We'll make the rules for tomorrow. Well, I'll do the commentary briefing afterwards. As we're just having a look at Patrick Heinrich in a freeway battle right now with Thomas Gibson behind and Dion Fallow just ahead. And we've also got in GTE Troy Asioi versus Mike Manakila as they battle out for 6th place on track. But you're right. When you go from being a big fish in a small pond to being a medium-sized fish in a bigger pond, you sometimes feel dejected, and this is why a lot of drivers, they'll go to a likes of an INX Racing, to an Apex Racing UK, to a Radicals Online, to a Vortex Sim Racing, to a team like Evolution Racing Team, for example, and they feel out of place very quickly, Connery. And this is why I think we started to see certain teams being a lot more strategic in the way that they recruit compared to 2 years ago, when it's a case of, okay, 30 guys on a team, let's see who's best. It's not a Royal Rumble, it's about development.
Yeah, and sometimes, of course, that is the problem with teams that can be called super teams, shall we say, being careful not to annoy people that are a part of such teams, but sometimes that team coherency isn't there, and there's not much of an atmosphere, much of a culture surrounding those particular teams that have 30, 40 drivers. Of course, I might just annoy people anyway, because that is just what I do, not as much as some people I know, though, of course. But in terms of this one, in terms of this race that's going on right now, as we go away from the meta topics of sim racing, it is still Rico Alatalo leading the way in prototypes, and that gap has stabled out a little bit right at the front. Still 1.2, 1.3 seconds, which is what we saw it at just a couple of laps ago. So Alatalo just being a little bit more careful, just knows he has the gap now, has the buffer zone, and is able to just manage the traffic all on his own at the front of the prototype field. We still got a battle, though, for P number 3 between Syandra and Marco Mogren that is not close right now, but has the potential to spark on into a little bit of a fight given the chance. But looking towards GTE then, this is Gianni Vecchio managing to get himself a decent gap then over Kenny Rusin. You got Dion Fiallo and Patrick Henrich, one of the many Patricks as part of that Pure Racing team involved in the battle for P number 3 in your GTEs. And then looking further back, you've got the race battle for the class lead then for GT3.
Oh, you
Williamson versus team. Oh, have I cursed him? Who have I cursed?
You cursed Patrick. He just lost it down in turn number 7, and they almost had a huge wreck down the back straightaway. Number 21 machine flashing his lights and another, and well, that is one of the things actually we should talk about in the second half of this broadcast, Connery. What happens when one driver makes a mistake? The chain reactions here start very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, and I was a little bit concerned about how Patrick actually cut across the nose of Thomas Gibson there as he was rejoining the track. As yeah, Patrick Henrich, trouble on the entry curve then for turn number 7, and of course, since this leads on to a very, very long back straight, he's going to have compromise speed all the way down. Does get that little bump from Gibson, and that could have been a huge, huge moment down the back straight. It only ended up being a little bump, but that could have been a race-ending moment, not only for Henrich, but for multiple drivers behind that were coming up quickly.
Well, that's the thing. This track also isn't actually that wide, Connery, so at most points it is free wide at best. So when you get into a situation, you've got a car turned around and people recovering, it gets stacked up, and you know, this is a track that, you know, arguably when it was built, wasn't designed for drivers going as fast as they are, and it's one of these tracks a little bit like Sebring that has really had to, you know, stick with its model. I mean, you could argue, Connery, this is almost like the Monaco at points of endurance racing. I don't know a track which is as twisty and as difficult for drivers to overtake at in terms of this type of racing, except for, yes, you know, Laguna Seca or Belle Isle, for all the trolls that are going to start making those comments about now.
Yeah, right about now. The track, of course, first race was held in 1970, of course, a big feature for the Can-Am events that were back there in the, of course, American sports car racing. So it does have a decent amount of history when it comes to, you know, at least GT machines or GT type machines. But in terms of the rest of the prototypes, of course, those started coming a little bit later on, and of course the speeds just reached an exponential moment, as I tried to find the correct word for that one. Exponential.
There we are. I will just say very quickly, to talk about something relating to racing, we have seen Fraser Williamson gap Nicky Dean by over a second, but that gap is now back down under a second, as we have got some prototypes on pit road, and some GT3s were just in.
We do. Marco Mogren, Thibaut Kazubon down on the lane then for your prototypes, and Eric Andre has already made his way in 2 laps ago, so going for more of a little bit of an undercut perhaps in his Daytona prototype there, as Kazubon and Mogren will look to make themselves off of pit lane, and Eric Andre not able to gain anything from pitting early in that situation. But the pit stop strategy today and of course tomorrow will be very interesting for these prototypes, because of course you have the usual issues of, oh, do you take tires, how much fuel do you take, what is your overall, you know, fuel numbers for the entire race. But for Road Atlanta especially, you have the issue of trying to find yourself a clear clear air to find yourself clear air to drop yourself into, because traffic is a huge issue.
Like it is, like I say about losing 5 seconds through sector number 1, you can lose 2 to 3 seconds coming onto pit road at the wrong time, especially if you are a driver in Daytona prototypes. It's Thomas Gibson out and away in 15.1 seconds, as we are now highly into that pit stop window, as Robin Esterson as well out and away in 15.2. So getting on towards pit road, that will cost you 2 to 3 seconds if you get it wrong. Coming off of pit road, I mean, if you are a Daytona prototype or a GTE car that comes out right behind a couple of GT3s, steam, not flames, but steam coming up your car.
Yeah, absolutely. Not seeing any of these prototypes actually take tires on their cars, so just fuel to the end of the event for the C7 Daytona prototypes. And you see Kazubon actually come off of lane into turn number 3 just fine, drops himself, like we were saying, into a little bit of clear air so he can focus on getting those tires up to temperature, getting those initial installation laps in, because of course, even if they don't change tires here on the pit lane, those tires do of course cool down, so you do have to get them back up to racing temperature. But looking at the overall race lead in prototypes, the traffic has stricken again, this time not in the favor of Riku Alatalo. He's lost about 0.3 of a second over the last previous laps, and they're still involved in this traffic heading their way up through turn number 5 as well. So gap is down from what was around 1.3 seconds down to about 8.5 tenths right now as they try to deal with this.
Through turn 7 they will come again, and Fabrice has got that gap down. I do expect both these drivers on towards pit road this time by the way. So for Fabrice, being about a second back is actually not necessarily a bad thing, as long as he can get himself past that other GT3 car before they get into the chicane, and it's going to be too close. This is where Fabrice actually might lose the motor race right exactly now, because Fabrice gets bolted once, he gets bolted twice. I mean, he does stay out. I mean, if you're a Riku, I would have pitted just then.
Yeah, just looking in your wing mirrors, you can see that sort of issue happening behind, and then you've got to make that sort of split-second decision to come down on towards the line, and it wasn't made from Alatalo. He's deciding to stay out at least one more lap here, and he might actually get punished for this one if he gets too stuck behind this Ford GT through the S's. Actually makes a slight mistake through the first apex of the S's there, but gets the car on the right line through turn number 5, getting that pass done over Patrick Henreich of your racing team in that GT and that G4 GT GTE, and the gap is standing at still around about 8.5 tenths of a second. So swings and roundabouts here in the battle for the race leads, your overall race lead, and the question is, will they come down this time, considering how much traffic is ahead of them? A string of 3 cars for Alatalo to deal with through the chicane. He'll get disposed of at least one on the entry to the chicane. That will be no problem at all. And now, does he decide to angle towards the pit lane? The rest of the prototype fields have come down at some point in this event, and Alatalo does decide to go in, as well as Fabrice Collette. So battle for the race lead on the pit lane.
Yeah, at the very last second, I was thinking, had Alatalo got past 2 of those cars before pit entry, I would have stayed out had he have had the fuel. Because actually what it would have meant is Fabrice would have had to have gone past 2 or 3 of them through sector number 1, but they both come on towards pit road at the same time, so now it's going to be a race.
Oh no!
Oh, and Cornelis, he just overshoots.
He does. That's at least a couple of tenths of a second lost there by Fabrice Collette. We'll see what the pit stop times turn out to be. 14 seconds for Alatalo, gets himself between those green cones. Look at how much of a gap that he has over Fabrice Collette as a result of that slow pit stall entry from Cornelis. And look at what the situation he's put himself into as well now. He's put 3 GT cars in between, well, Alatalo's put 3 GT cars in between himself and Cornelis. Nightmare situation for Canales.
Yeah, but also have a look at that gap. 3.6 seconds, 4 seconds now. This is what happens sometimes when you're not right. Oh my word! Cornelis almost taken out of the event there. And that gap might rise to about 4.5, maybe even 5 seconds by the time we get to the next timing beam here, Conway. This is where it's a chain reaction because you just had a bad pit stop. You come out and you've now got to lap more traffic than the guy ahead of you, and this is where the cooler head has prevailed. But Cornelis there did nothing wrong into 5.
Yeah, absolutely nothing wrong at all. CM Skinner drifting across the track, perhaps a little bit unsighted with how that 4 was positioning itself and not able to see in the rear mirror that prototype was coming on the left-hand side there, just drifted across into the side of that Pure Racing Team prototype. A little bit of damage there to the driver's right-hand side of Fabrice Cornelis' car. Let's see if that car is still on pace, but he's lost 0.3 of a second, or rather, well, much more than that, in fact. He lost about 3 seconds and 0.3 of a second there, so 3.3 seconds lost on that pit stop cycle and outlap alone. Cornelis, he's got a lot of work to do now.
He has. He has got a ton, and let's be honest, he's going to have to start gaining about 0.4 of a second a lap if he wants to really keep this one in the balance as they get towards the closing 10 minutes. However, we've also got a battle still going on in terms of our GT3, and we've got ourselves still the driver of Fraser Williamson leading the way. We still have the driver of Nicky Thiem in 2nd place, and because it was requested, Connery, I think...
Oh, he sent it! Oh, Nicky Thiem, he manages to do it, but he'll get the move back. Will Williamson? No, he won't. He gets tagged, and that Glacier Racing prototype has to shoot the gap in the middle as well. Oh, what a mess through the chicane.
And that's why we don't go to fan immersion just after a pit stop. Let's have ourselves another look at that one. Nicky Thiem, I mean, that was a bold move. Let's have a look.
Oh.
3 car lengths back, heading himself in towards, and he just, I mean, I'm not quite sure whether Fraser was just trying to be more cautious. The two come together once, they come together twice, and Riku Adatao like threads the needle, but Nicky Thiem, I mean, he's only still 0.7 of a second back, so let's do some fan immersion, Connery.
Let's do it on the board then, with the driver of the number 26, Nicky Thiem, as he tries to recover from that incident. Getting ever closer once again. So round number 2 between Thiem and Williamson might just well start in just a couple of moments. It may just well start down into the chicane this time. Is he going to go for it again? Nope, Thiem. Oh, he's going to get contact from behind though. That was a GTE machine punting Nicky Thiem into the concrete wall on the outside. Then that was Dion Fiallo. Oh no, that is the end of Nicky Thiem's race. Yeah, I'll tell you how I'm judging this one. Well, it's just a case of Dion Fiallo more expecting Nicky Thiem to more drag the brakes, you know, sort of get alongside Fraser Williamson down in towards towards the chicane on the outside, but he just slowed the car down much more than Fiallo was expecting. You could see by the line of Fiallo's car that he was going to try to go down the inside there once Williamson and Thiem were going to go side by side, but side by side they didn't go, and as a result in that instant there, of course it is Fiallo's fault, but there's a lot more to it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he does. So it was angling that car to go down the inside once Thiem had tried to make an outside pass into the first apex over Williamson, but I think Thiem actually backed out of that one, and Fiallo wasn't expecting it, so the line that he was going to go for all of a sudden didn't exist anymore, and he just ran into the back of Thiem. So that is my personal analysis of what has happened there between those two drivers. Unfortunately, that has meant that Nicky Thiem has retired from this event, and the battle for the race lead, unfortunately for GT3, is kind of a little over in that situation. Still a couple of seconds gap between Williamson and a new second place runner, which is Manuel Weibel. But of course, Weibel is embroiled in a battle right now between himself and CM Skinner, the driver of the number 34. So the battles in GT3 is certainly not over. Maybe for the race lead they are, but for positions further down, still very much alive, as we have the situation where actually Marco Mogra and Syandra, they have just negotiated a pass down into the chicane. So we've got Syandra getting himself past Marco Mogren, although there was a little bit of contact there down into the final chicane, but Mogren actually, he was actually trying to defend the move there, and actually did successfully defend the move. I got it all wrong. Mogren managing to complete a defensive move down into the chicane, despite a little bit of contact on entry with Andrew.
Yeah, and I need to re-say everything I said about the Nicky Thiem incident in about 20 seconds. So, what we saw in towards the chicane was Nicky Thiem looking as though he's going to go to the outside of Fraser Williamson, driver behind, just rolling off the brake a little bit to go down to the inside. It didn't work. Nicky Thiem, as a consequence of that, gets tagged to the left rear even. Too many incident points out of the event. Meanwhile, action going on in GT3, and I've already got a sticky button box.
A sticky button box?
Oh, an Agato box, if you want to use a brand name. As Heinrich's down to the inside, Heinrich's making up lost ground back into the podium in GTE.
Yeah, move completed then down through the 10A, 10B chicane down the inside. Easy does it for Patrick Henrich, and Fiallo not really fighting that one when it comes to it. So Henrich able to get himself onto that final step of the podium. Rusin and Vecchio perhaps are a little bit too far down the road to be worrying about for him. So maybe P number 3 is the best that Henrich can do in this situation. But I'm just having a look back towards GT3s, because we do have this battle between Weibel and Skinner for P number 2, an Audi versus an AMG Mercedes. And I'm just having a look at the car choice for GT3s, because we have a AMG Mercedes leading, we have an Audi MP number 2, Mercedes MP number 3, and Mercedes, we've got more Mercedes, all the way down. I think Merc is maybe the strongest car here, just taking a guess.
There's more Mercedes than Broad Street in Birmingham on a Friday night, and I'm not even talking about the cars.
Oh, I would. Multi-layered joke, I really like that. Anyway, but CM Skinner, of course, part of the Mercedes contingent, not in name, of course, it's the car choice that he's made, but trying to chase down that fellow German GT3 in that Audi, gets the slipstream them down towards the chicane, looks to the inside, not brave enough to go down on the brakes there into that first apex, so prefers to just stick behind then just for now. If you're worried about pit stops, well, we won't have any now for the rest of this race. The entirety of the field has come down on towards the lane at least once, but Skinner here right on the back of Weibel. Very close there for P number 2. Down in towards turn number 1. Skinner sends it down the inside. Weibel trying to fight back on the exit up towards turn number 2 and turn number 3 as well, but not able to. So that position is gained then from the AMG Mercedes of CM Skinner. So change of position inside the final 2 steps of the podium in your GT3 field.
And I was wondering there, just if Weibel was thinking, you know what, I've got a lot to gain in this event, not just in terms of my position by getting a podium, but also in terms of increase in safety rating, increase in I rating, because Weibel and Skinner both have got I ratings of less than 4,000, which in this field is a big thing because the strength of field in all 3 classes are high, and they've got to think about the fact that if they do crash, they'll lose a lot of I rating, but if they carry on where they are, they're going to make a nice big gain as well today.
Oh, Robin Esterson, driver of the number 3, having an issue on the exit of the chicane. He was battling with Mikko Melkila down into there. Was there a little bit of contact on the end? Well, in the middle of the corner, there was a little bit of contact. It just shoves Esterson towards the outside there. I don't think he'll have any major damage as a result of that one, but a little bit of a tangle there through the slow speed section.
Yep, and the Van Devil car, Van Devil car even, just having himself there, an incident, and this is what these drivers are also trying to learn before tomorrow. How bold can I be, and when do I need to just give a couple of extra inches, as there is no damage to the front of that Ford GTE car. And, you know, in terms of an endurance race, that is a good 30 seconds lost on pit road fixing, as well as the time that is lost in terms of every single lap. Yeah,
exactly. Oh, we have a battle between Mogren and Syandra. So close then down in towards the chicane, but for P number 3 in your prototypes. A little bit of contact between a prototype and the GT car. There's Henrik and Syandra actually Henrik ran into the back of the prototype, which is, again, one of those situations that can happen through a slow speed section between a GT and a prototype ahead. But here we go. Syandra around the outside there. Turn number 1. Oh, he gets tagged around. Andra onto the grass then on the exit of 1, small margins, and pays the price.
I was about to say it's a bold man that tries to go around the outside at turn number 1 of Road Atlanta. Syandra paying the price. It's a bold move, but it didn't work out for him. We've shown ourselves 2 replays. Let's get ourselves 1 more, shall we? As they go too wide into the corner. And actually, I think that all started. I want to show you one more here, Connor. I think that all started before the corner. I'm going to see if I can pause it for you right about now. And he's just caught a bit of the dust as he angles that car to the left to go to the outside to then cut back across the track. That back end starts stepping out immediately. The 2, yes, they do make a little bit of contact there, but I think Syandra's issues actually started before he came into the corner.
Yeah, that car was looking a little bit twitchy trying to get itself into there, which it can be an issue for these Daytona prototypes with the rear end stability. But, oh, that is a not a great instant to be having coming through there, though. It was a bold move, like we said. It was a move that almost worked. It was just a case of being a millimeter too far back on the exit of the corner. That does mean that contact was made between the 2 drivers. We're on board right now with Arthur LeHook then for the driver of the number 10, trying to chase down Patrick Heinrich for Pure Racing Team. We got the teammate, or Arthur LeHook's teammate behind of Kazu Bond, trying to make his way through in that Daytona prototype. LDLC by TX3, of course, is the team that LeHook and Kazu Bond are a part of, as they try to make their way by Tom Birdle. That is driver number 38 in GT3, getting swarmed a little bit by both GTEs and prototypes, just trying to get well out of the way, which will be a theme in tomorrow's event. But looking further back in your GT3 field, running on board with Stuart Dick then, driver of the 37. So this is the battle mid-pack in your GT3 field. Battle for P number 9. You have Abdulkadir Al-Amri right ahead of Stuart Dick here. Only a third of a second separate them as they come through the S's here, well.
And let's not forget as well, Connery, that Al Amri had some technical issues earlier on, which put him well down the field. He's got himself back up a few positions, but Dick right now, in that number 37 machine, he is looking strong, but we've only got 9 minutes to go of this event. So Stuart Dick, in that number 37 machine, has to get a hurry on, because after this, really, he's got 10 seconds to gain before he can get anywhere further. That is Dave Cameron.
Yeah, it has. We've got just ticked under 9 minutes remaining in this one, which, looking at from Stuart Dick's perspective, that's going to be 8 laps next time he heads his way across the line. Same with your prototype race leader as well, so that makes it pretty easy for us. But Stuart Dick still trying to find some form of time coming through the final sector. Actually gets a pretty good run there through the final corner, able to close up just a little bit, but not going to be close enough down in towards turn number 1. But having a look back to your GT, well, it's still in your GT3 field, but it's the battle for P number 2. CM Skidder versus Manuel Weibel. Weibel managing to close up 3/10 of a second that last time. So Weibel definitely making some inroads here, but of course we already had that pass done between himself and Skinner. But can Weibel find his way back? And that's one of the toughest things to do in racing sometimes. When you get a pass done on you, you have to find something within you to try and get yourself back into a position to try and get back past. Despite the fact that that driver ahead of you may well be faster than you in clear air, you still have to try and find that desire to try and get yourself back through. Otherwise, unfortunately, you're not going to be a race winner.
Lap 36, lap 37. Skinner was faster by about 1/3 of a second, lap on lap, over Manuel Weibel. Lap number 38, lap number 39, it is green for Weibel. He has gained 1/3 of a second back. And that's exactly what you were talking about there, Connery. And all of a sudden, Skinner's just got to get back into the zone, but there is a bit of traffic ahead of them as well. And there'll be more traffic coming up behind them maybe before the end of this event.
Yeah, exactly. You've already got Javi Ultreus in that GTE machine behind, maybe trying to make his way through. As we'll keep our eyes on this battle then for P number 2 in class, P number 2 in your GTE field. It's battle between 2 different manufacturers. You'll see that GTE car right behind, trying a little bit of a flash of the lights there. We'll be seeing that a lot tomorrow. The universal sign of please get out of the way. That please is definitely a very important thing to add in there, as Ultreus looks to make his way by under the Suzuki bridge. Not given a lot of room there by the lap traffic, but all is fair and done, and Weibel has had himself an instant there coming through the final turn, and he'll bin it on the exit of the corner as well for good measure, trying to rejoin the racetrack, then careful not to go onto the racing line, but drivers behind are very much aware of that one, and we've had the curse of the cameras being on someone again, the curse of the commentator, because Weibel has binned it. Yep. He's still going, but he's binned it. Yeah,
as we were just showing you that one. And the thing is, for Weibel, I mean, he was pushing hard. Let's be frank about that one, Connery. He was pushing hard. He was trying his hardest. But the issue for Weibel is, you know, sometimes you just... that's not a mistake you should be making at this type of track.
Yeah, but he tried to let the GTE machine down the inside at turn number, well, the final turn, but that is such a tricky thing to do, coming down through there. You're better off waiting perhaps for the pit straight directly after, and he got a little bit too wide on entry and managed to clip the grass, and of course that completely unsettled the car. We're riding on board with Thomas Gibson right now, battle for P number 4 in your GTE field but right now we might as well call it the 4 GT fields, considering all the Ferraris are more towards the back of the field. But right now, Gibson, he's currently running lap times, at least last time, by half a second faster, or 4.5 of a second faster. Lap number 41, the one previous to that one, we've got 3.5 of a second. So Gibson making a lot of inroads here over Fiallo, and Fiallo has to put up some form of defense.
He will have to in the last, what realistically is going to be about 3 laps of this event. Gap is down to 0.2 of a second. This will be Gibson's best chance, in my opinion. He does try to look down to the inside. He will go to the inside, and he will Sweet pass. Nice move there by Gibson.
Impressive move. Fiallo will look for the move back, though, through the final corner, which is a very tough thing to do, but oh, he's going to tuck himself right on the rear of Gibson then. Towards the outside, he'll have to go then, as Gibson defends the inside line. Looking for the speed on the exit then is Fiallo on the run up towards turn number 2, then a quick right into turn number 3 over that curb, and Gibson managing to secure the position for now, but Fiallo, he'll definitely try to fight this one back, but that was a fantastic move down into the chicane by Gibson, just clean as he like.
Yeah, as we just had a fantastic look on board, although this time by, it will come together. He can look to the outside in towards turn number 6. So nothing's going to happen this time. There is traffic, however, ahead of these two cars that might come into play. So there's still a lot of work to go. And of course, these guys, they can actually try and get a podium right now. They're only 1.1 behind off the hook in terms of 3rd place in class. So if they just stop for a minute, they could try and go for a podium in the last couple of laps.
It can definitely be attempted, but you can have no guarantees in those situations. Tentative on the brakes then down in towards the chicane with the lap traffic getting itself involved. So GT3s versus GTEs will be negotiated through for the final turn, and that is, oh, that's a move from Dion Fiallo. Not one that I would have gone for. It's a high-risk move to get yourself down the inside of a piece of lap traffic through the final turn, but manages to do it there in that situation. And, well, about 4 laps to go for these guys to get yourself up as far up the field as possible in this one. We've got, exactly as I mentioned, well, Arthur LeHook is not too far away from these guys at all, and if these guys can run without fighting each other, of course they may be able to fight for that final podium position when all is said and done. Having a look at your prototypes, though, they have been quiet since the start of this race, but things may be showing some signs of life, especially between the battle, with the battle for being number 5, and Eric Andre versus, number 4, excuse me, Thibaut Kazubon versus Eric Andre, and Andre having to start right from the back of the field. Trying to make some inroads. He's already up to P number 5 from P number 9, which he started. Of course, that was helped by a couple of retirements in that prototype field early on, which has propelled Andre up through the field as he managed to avoid it down in towards turn number 1 for the first time. Looking for more, though. P number 4 would be a good finish on the back of the grid. Yes,
and one thing as well, we've just been asking, AI, if you were at Sim Racing Expo, you'd have seen the launch of AI on iRacing in what was then a beta, as we're not going to talk about that for a second, because Eric Andre is up a position and Thibaut Kazubon is down into P number 5. And Eric Andre up a position, but go on.
Ooh, squarely there through turn number 6 for Kazubon. So the position had already been lost at that point, but he could have lost his entire race if that had gone very wrong. He tried to deal with the lap traffic then on the exit of turn number 5, got caught up behind Stuart Dick, so that meant that the prototype had lost all momentum coming out of the corner, and Eric Andre managing to capitalize on the situation that Kazubon had got himself into. So Andre then up into P number 4 from the back of the grid. Fantastic drive for him so far, with 2 laps to go.
Yes, I think it will be 2 laps to go here, Connery. We've got 40 seconds of the race still to go. Rico Alatalo on the exit of turn number 7. So we should probably cross the start-finish line with, I would say, about 12 seconds remaining.
Yeah, looks to be the case indeed. 25 seconds halfway through down the back straight. I think this one's going to go on more than exactly as you said it will. But, you know, the Altal does have the option to maybe park the bus through the final chicane. He does have 20 seconds to work with, is the gap back towards Fabrice Cornelis, but he won't park the bus. He'll take us for one more lap. Crosses the line with 3 seconds to go. White flag out on circuit. This is your final lap of the event, and Kazubon, what has happened to him?
DQ.
Oh, he's DQ, disqualified from the event from going over the instant limit. And what was his final instant, I wonder? It seems like I cannot quite see that one, what exactly it was his final instant, but unfortunately he is out of the race right now, and that is something that can happen with the instant limit of 16 incidents you can get before you get disqualified, and that is very hard to keep yourself under at this track because of things like turn number 5, because of maybe little bits of contact with the lap traffic. We've got Gianni Vecchio coming across the line to complete his, well, going to complete his penultimate lap here. We've got the battle between Arthur LeHook and Thomas Gibson that could be close by the end of this event. Kenny Roosen's down on the lane from B number 2. He doesn't have enough fuel for the final lap.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Call it first, Connery. We'll talk about that in a sec.
He has to take a splash and dash, stops in the pit box, has to get himself off and away. And I think, yes, exactly, Riku Alatalu across the line for Glacier Racing. Fantastic drive from the number 13. And that will set the stage then for Glacier Racing for the Petit Le Mans. Fraser Williamson in GT3. He'll head his way through the final corner and take the race win for Team Bushfink Racing. Fantastic drive, fantastic defensive drive for Fraser Williamson, at least in the early to mid parts of the race, where Nicky Thiem was all over his back bumper. We've had a spin through the chicane. That's Dave Cameron, tweaking number 27 overall, so dramas for him late on in the event. But Gianni Vecchio, driver of the number 1 Pure Racing team, Vecchio under the Suzuki Bridge and through the final corner. Vecchio will take the race win in GTE.
I want to talk about that pit stop. And Riku Alatalo was 3 seconds away from this race going a lap shorter. And that is always the risk when you come to a short track like this, Connery. You could end up in a situation where all of a sudden you've got to find those extra couple of litres of fuel. And what did we say at the top of the broadcast as the drivers were doing their pace lap?
Yeah, exactly. That just comes with the territory when you cross the line with 3 seconds to go. It's just such a marginal thing of whether you'll be doing an extra lap or not. And I don't think Kenny Russo was expecting that we were going to be doing the extra lap, having to come in for the splash and dash right in the dying moments. And those margins are just so close. Of course, if maybe on average, maybe Alatel was a couple of tenths of a second slower across the whole event, we won't be having that final lap, and Kenny Roostons will be fine. But the thing is, that is just not the situation that it turned out to be. He had to come down on towards the lane and get that little splash of fuel for the end of the race, and it has resulted in him falling all the way down the field to P number 9 after he was running P number 2. That is just racing sometimes, Will. It
is, and, you know, we saw it at Daytona a couple of years ago, Magnus Racing being able to, at the very last lap, get themselves into a podium. Actually, no, they won the race, didn't they, Magnus Racing? Which, of course, meant the best stream in all of racing had an even better finish. But, you know, that's a prelude for tomorrow. Strategy, patience, confidence, and just remember, the little things can mean everything.
Let's have a look then at your final race results for round number 4 of the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship here on the iRacing service, broadcasted on the iRacing Esports Network and, of course, on RaceSpotTV as well. Riku Alatalo taking the overall race win for Glacier Racing. 23.1 seconds was the gap at the end there. Absolutely dominant for Alatalo after his early battles with Fabrice Cornelis from Pure Racing Team. Marco Mogren, P number 3, gaining 2 positions from P number 5 on the grid. You got Enric Andre, after starting last, gets himself up into P number 4. Syandra, P number 5. You've got Thibaut Kazubon, P number 6. Sven Kamitz, Jolguez, and Johan Haaf. Those final runners actually, unfortunately, getting themselves involved in that instant early on, which has meant that they're right at the back of the finishing results. Looking at your GTE machines then, Gianni Vecchio, Pure Racing Team, race win in GT's name a better pairing, 8.1 seconds ahead of Arthur LeHook. Thomas Gibson then gets himself onto the final step of the podium after the issues with Kenny Roosen and fuel. Dion Fialo, P number 4. Miko Melkila, P number 5. Robin Esterson, P number 6. P number 7 goes to Patrick Henreich, and P number 8 will go to Vincenzo Silvestri. Kenny Roosen drops all the way down then to P number 9 as a result of his fuel issues. Andy Gordon, P number 10, when all is said and done for him, 25.7 seconds behind your race leader. Then further back, you got Jorge Blasco, Vals, Drug Coroni, and Yavigal Treyas rounding out your GTE field, with Scott Brazier and Tammy Ackley unfortunately retiring from this event. Then you've got your GT3 field. Fraser Williamson taking the race win for Team Bushfink, and you've got CM Skinner getting himself the second step on the podium, with Wim Stockmans getting himself P number 3 as well. Not too bad for those particular drivers. Manuel Weibel, P number 4 after late dramas, and Harold Stadler, P number 5 for him. Michael F. Doka gets himself P number 6, with Dave Cameron finishing in 7th. Abdulkir Al-Amri, P number 8 when all is said and done. Stuart Dick and Andrei Rajkovic, P number 10. Bring things down to P number 10, in fact. And further back, you've got Carlos Fenno, Tom Birdle. You've got the likes of Michael Etienne. You've got Carlos Oliver Pascual. Nicky Team retiring from this event after the battle for the race lead gone wrong. And then Carsten Huth with an early instance, meaning he finishes dead last of your 40-car field. Well, we'll take a short commercial break here on RaceSpotTV and the iRacing Esports Network. Don't forget the post-race show coming up straight after this.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
So what are you afraid of? Those feelings are made up. For anyone asking who is the best, we putting our hands up.
4 more kilometers. A big
there we go!
This time, like the last time, I'm moving so fast, I'm ready to ride.
Wonky! Down to the inside of Hoosie's off!
passenger throws the block, and he will keep him behind him.
My time. None of you people can tell me to stop. Lower the lights down. Hand over my crown. Hand over my heart. I do this for my town. I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time. None of you people can tell me to stop. Turning the track up. I'll never go back down. Hand over my heart. I do this for my town. I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time. None of you people can tell me to stop.
Well, welcome back then to the post-race show for the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship round number 4 here on RaceSpotTV and the iRacing Esports Network. Yet another fantastic race here on RaceSpotTV Friday primetime, and it resulted in a win overall for Glacier Racing and Riku Alatalo. Mr. Will Vinton is standing by with your overall race winner.
Hello. Yes. No. Easy. Even easier. Fast. Yes. Thank you.
Excuse me while I try to stop laughing. But that was perhaps the most detailed interview that we've ever had here on RaceSpotTV. Absolutely brilliant stuff. And then we'll swiftly move on then to another driver. Why not? Let's get Fraser Williamson behind the microphone. The young Scotsman will actually take this one again and make it the most Scottish interview that you can imagine.
Okay. An amount that I'll not say for legal reasons. Not yet. This is warmer. I could wear a t-shirt out in this, you know, no jumpers, no nothing. It was weird. Never experienced it before. Yeah, no potholes in it. Well, too many, so it's smooth. It works well.
Okay, so you've got nice smooth roads. You've got nice racing. How is the racing compared to driving on Scottish roads?
The racing's racing, isn't it? You know, people wreck each other, so it's nice, no bad.
Okay, so let's talk about tomorrow very quickly. 10-hour race. Have you got the endurance?
Who knows? Let's see what happens tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, Fraser Williamson.
Apologies.
Yeah, apologies for the mic issues, by the way. That sticky button is really doing my nuts in today.
I think, as someone mentioned in the chat, I think it made the interview with Riku much funnier, to be honest. But let's just move on from that one. Just having a look then at Gianni Vecchio. I'll take this one instead then. Well, Gianni, Pure Racing Team, race win in GTEs. You guys feeling confident for tomorrow with a result like that?
Yeah, I think so, because like I have to say, Max Winnig did like the whole week. He did an absolutely amazing job, like for doing the setup. And the last few days we struggled a bit, but I think today we kind of made a big step in the right direction, and that's pretty much was the reason why I won the race right now. And yeah, I think tomorrow we maybe can go for the win, and obviously we have to make this be for John, because if Jonas wins this tomorrow, he won every special event, so I think it's a must win tomorrow.
Yeah, of course, Road Atlanta is a very, very interesting track when it comes to things like lap traffic. It was a topic that we touched upon many times during the race. And how do you manage it when you're sort of that middle class, the class that's, of course, slower than the prototypes, faster than the GT3 machines? You have cars trying to get past you trying to get past lap traffic. How chaotic is the racing here for you today, and of course, going to be tomorrow?
It's going to be hard. Like, it's so hard to manage the traffic at Atlanta, because the only really overtaking point is the long straight, but you kind of have to make sure that you don't lose that much time if you have to, for example, have to pass GT3 cars in the SS section. So it's going to be really hard, and I think traffic is going to be the most important thing tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, definitely always is at the Petit Le Mans, in fact. So many races decided there based on who gets themselves through the traffic easier than all the others. But in terms of this one, Gianni, and of course tomorrow as well, well, especially tomorrow, who do you think are going to actually be your big competitors in the race? Is there anyone you've spotted in these sorts of sessions and in practice sessions over the course of the week that can perhaps give you a run for your money?
Vanderwall, for sure. Like, like I think if Robin wouldn't have had that crash, I think he would have been easily race for the win. And also Williams Esports with I think I drove this week against Kaschube and he was pretty fast, so Vanderwall and Williams Esports for sure. That's going to be our biggest opponents.
Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go, Gianni?
As I said, Max Winnick for the setup, and also our sponsors, Asher Racing, Spusu, the Pure Driving School, and Outdoors Wallmeyer. And yeah.
That was Gianni Vecchio then, Pure Racing Team race winner in GTE. And then we're going to have a look about who to talk to next. Maybe we'll have a little bit of a discussion, Will, with Eric Andre this time for Race Clutch.
Yeah, and Eric Andre, 4th place here today. How much preparation and how much experience did he get from today to help your team tomorrow?
Well, none, basically, apart from doing less mistakes. Now, clearly it was a really bad race for me. Luckily I escaped I escaped the crash, turn 1, but I think it was Joel who unfortunately didn't lock his brakes, so he touched my rear. And from that point, basically my race was over, because my rear suspension was quite in a bad state, and then I tried to push and I ended up in the wall. So yeah, I'm quite surprised I still managed to finish 4th and not so far off Riku.
So in terms of this championship, the IMSA Sportscar Championship, a 4th place isn't the worst you could have hoped for today, because of course starting from the rear meant that you avoided some of the calamities going on in the midfield. Explain that first lap crash from your perspective.
I didn't review what exactly happened, but from what I saw, it was Johan and Joel who collided. I don't know why. Then I just saw some cars flipping and just going crazy. I braked and I just tried to go as slow as possible in order to escape with a lot of damage, but as I said earlier, Joel touched me, but he was a passenger in the car, so he clearly could have done nothing about it. Yeah, after that first lap, I was just trying to do my best with the damage.
And Eric Andre, 4th place here today, Connery. However, Race Clutch looking for a good way to end out their endurance season tomorrow in the Petit Le Mans.
Yeah, definitely one of those teams that...
yeah, so yeah, like, well, it's looking quite nice because, like, at the moment we're currently in pole position. I don't know if some people will manage to improve during this night, but like, we'll start at the front of the field for sure, and we have a lot of race pace, but let's see how it goes tomorrow.
All right.
Sorry, I was on a little bit of autopilot there. Anyway, that was an Eric Andre, driver for Race Clutch. Of course, one of those teams that's rising up rather quickly through the ranks in terms of the team racing here on the iRacing service, and it would be great to see them at the front of that prototype field tomorrow. But we have one more driver to talk to here before we wrap up. That is going to be Syandra, and, well, we're going to have a little bit of a talk with him. So, Sai, you were involved in a pretty feisty battle, shall we say, between yourself and Marco Mogren. Just take us through exactly what happened with a little bit of contact that you had.
Well, Marco and I had a really, really close battle for the entire race, as you probably saw. And what the difference was I was running a bit less downforce than Marco was, so all I had to do was stay in front of him through the twisty stuff, and then on the straightaways I could just pull away from him. But the moment he got around me, that's when I was in trouble. So I was racing him really hard, trying to use my advantage on the straights as much as possible, and kind of diving it around the outside in turn 1. And I guess I could have left him a little bit more room, but I think personally that I left him enough room to not have contact. But it was either netcode or it was just a racing incident, I feel. And I think had I completed that pass without contact, I think I would have had a podium today. So a little disappointed.
a podium from starting P6 would have been absolutely fantastic, but you still gain at least one position over your grid position up into P5, so that is still a decent finish for you. But looking to tomorrow, of course, you're a representative of the Wyvern Racing team, and it's not usually a team that we tend to see in those top splits. How's the top split hunt going for you guys at the moment?
Well, we're trying to change that. Hopefully this year, towards the end of this year, we're kind of building up our team, kind of getting that experience under our belts to kind of run with the big boys, so to speak. If this was an F1 field, I'd kind of characterize us as kind of one of the midfield teams like Force India or maybe Haas. And I want to kind of get into those top 6 sort of rides, if that makes sense, and kind of make Wyvern a name that like people know.
Yep, slow and steady progress then for you, and getting into those top splits is definitely a way to definitely get noticed on the iRacing service, and then things can really explode from there in terms of course, World Championship attempts as well, maybe in the future for you guys, depending on how things will go. And of course, we're now late on in the year now, so we're getting into the league endurance racing season, and how have those sort of escapades been going for you? How have you been preparing for these final few months of the year?
Really, really well. We've gotten together a good group of guys. We've entered 2 of the highest tiers of endurance racing, I think, on iRacing. We've entered a car in Neo and a car in DGFX, and I think our pace is really good. We should be competing for at least top 5s, I think, every race, if not a podium. And I think if things go our way, we could snatch the occasional win.
Fantastic goals then for Wyvern Racing. Syandra finishing P5 in the prototype field there right at the end of the event. But that is definitely not the end of racing action here on RaceSpotTV for the weekend. Not by any means. We have the next event tomorrow. It's the big event. The Petit Le Mans gets itself the green flag 20 minutes past 1 in the afternoon GMT. There will be the start of the broadcast, and that was going to be Paul Matthew Smith taking you through the action with a couple of other commentators as well, and we'll bring you the entire 10 hours of the event for this one. You've also got on the same day as well, you've got the World Championship Grand Prix Series. The battle between Martin Kroenke and Mitchell de Jong rages on, this time at Spa Francorchamps. Will Vincent, Jake Sperry and Johnny Simone taking you through that one, the usual crew for the World Championship Grand Prix Series. Then you've got on Sunday the McLaren Shadow Series. The MP4-12C will be making its way around Imola. It's going to be myself and Will once again for that one. And then to finish off our weekend of racing, we have the DJ HD Truck Series, 11 p.m. GMT on Sunday. Randy Chaneth and Nolan Rempel will take you through the action for a new series here on RaceSpotTV. But that is all we have time for here. Don't go away for the, well, at least in terms of tomorrow, because that will be an absolutely fantastic event. Definitely tune in for that. Signing off here on RaceSpotTV Friday to Primetime, it's Connery Maddock. That has been Will Vincent. Goodbye.